Well, you did mention Cell, and that's a good tie-in to what you're doing now, 20 Years of Hell, because it is 20 years since that Hell in the Cell match with The Undertaker, and you're doing Q&A, and you're doing 20 tour dates in the U.S. and Canada, and tickets are on sale right now. Talk about this unique event with you.
Yeah, I think it should be a lot of fun. Tommy's been to one of my shows in the past, right?
Yes, I've been 2 or 3. I'm a big fan. Love your work.
Okay. And it was quite an endeavor. I mean, starting back from when I had this, I more or less stopped doing these shows for like 6 months. They were really difficult to explain to people. It was much easier to do a meet and greet, a signing, and it was almost impossible to get people to try. It was difficult to get people to try something different, especially because we had branded it at that time as stand-up comedy. And then I got kind of a fateful a booking where I was doing both a signing at a mall in I think Watertown, New York, and then later that night a show. And the mall signing was really well attended. And when I would ask people, "Hey, you going to the show tonight?" I could tell they were lying when they were making up excuses as to why they didn't want to go. So we're dealing with a part of the market that already likes me enough to come to a signing, but doesn't like me enough to try something different if they don't know what it is. And that night I did my VIP signing and then went out to see less people in the crowd than I had just signed for backstage. And I was like, "What happened?" And they went, "Oh, they left. They left because they gotten the autograph in the meeting." It would normally that'd be kind of depressing, except for that was one of those nights that like a lot of performers talk about, whether it's on stage or in the ring. It doesn't matter how many people are there. It's just like pretty magical. And so I thought to myself then, I was like, you know what? If I don't try this, if I don't really go all out, I'm going to be sitting on my couch 10 years from now saying, what if? And I really, I put everything I had into it, probably for too long. And went out for like 6 years without any real interruption. And but the challenge was always to get people who already liked me to try something different. And so what I'm doing with this show is making it really clear what the subject matter is. I'm kind of tipping my hat to Bruce Springsteen and The River, so that if somebody leaves the River tour and says, he didn't play Spirit in the Night, then people are like, dude, it's The River. So this show is making it really clear that this is a way of looking at like the prelude, the execution, the aftermath, the legacy of this famous match, and then we throw in a Q&A, which is about any subject people want to talk about. But I'm excited. I was writing it the past few days on the plane, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's, in this case, it's going to be something that people really want to see and will enjoy.
Do most people, when you do have the opportunity to have a Q&A session, or even when they come to meet and greets, are most questions that you get about that match, 20 years ago?
Yeah, that would be one of the... it shouldn't be that case this time because we'll go so in depth to it. But there was a time when I would talk to I remember way before WWE had their Be a Star campaign, I'd go off on my own and do talks with schools, and some of them were some pretty tough schools that the gang problems and such on Long Island. And I mean, I'd really emote, from the heart. About the importance of staying in school, treating people with respect, and reading and writing. And then I'd say, any questions? And, you'd say you get 60 people raising their hand, and I go, oh, it did hurt when I got thrown off the cell. And all the hands would go down. It was the number one question. It still is. And, I mentioned Adam West earlier. There are a lot of guys like Adam West who feel like they've been unfairly typecast, and they go through a period where they wish this thing didn't follow them. And that's kind of the way I was for a number of years with this match. And then after a while, especially like in the last 5 years, when you're seeing children who weren't born until like 10 years after that match, like asking about it, And then you realize, it's not a curse. It's really, quite a blessing to have something that has stuck with people for so long.
Absolutely, and it's funny. I mean, I like I said, I came to your shows not because I'm your friend. I came to the shows because I'm interested in the topic. But a match like that will go down. It's like, the NFL, the Ice Bowl, or the greatest game ever played on turf. Yeah. It's one of those iconic moments that will forever be ingrained in our memory, just like, Jimmy Snuka diving off the steel cage, stuff like that. And I mean, for Mick, the storyteller that he is, the best-selling author that he is, he's written stuff about me in certain situations that I was in with him at that same time. And I was like, it's a different perspective. And it captivated my audience, me, and I was there. So, if you're a wrestling fan, you got to sit there. If you're just a casual, I mean, honestly, if you're trying to sell this to, like, let's say a promotion company, well, I went to a top of, 30 feet, and then a guy threw me off the top. My tooth went through my nose, and I shook his hand afterwards. It's an insane story just to the real masses, where you just got to sit there and Mick will throw his own little comedy, which is amazing. And it's his unique perspective of an amazing, iconic moment that everybody has watched. And if you don't, you watch it on the WWE Network, free for $9.99, or right now it's free because of WrestleMania is right around the corner.
It's funny. One of the things I realize is because I had, over the course of 6 years, talked about the Cell. So, I mean, if one question is, A, is it going to be completely new? It's like, no, I mean, there's some things that really worked that, A, people will want to hear again. B, that, a lot of people haven't seen the show to begin with. The town selection is a little different. We're all over the country in some atypical places. But I thought it's like a match in a sense, or a promo where you have a line that works and you're like, I know I can make that work in a different context. And so I'm taking some things, a handful of things that have worked in the past, and building around them. And Tommy, I will say that this won't be like the show where I just, I'm not going to say I'm not going to try off-the-wall things, but I think because I have a definite subject matter, that I probably won't be calling you up to talk me out of having Santa Claus ejected for heckling me during
if you want to call me up and have someone push me off the top of the building or whatever comedy club or venue we're doing, I will take that bump for you, no problem. And then you could explain how much pain I'm writhing in at that moment.
Hey, Tommy, you shared your secret with me. Remember me texting you came back to WWE, you'd taken some kind of hideous fall, and it looked pretty bad. And so I reached out. I hope I was the first guy to text you, and I'm like, man, are you okay? Really worried about you. And Tommy writes back with the most profound statement. He goes, fat doesn't break.
I say muscles tear and rip, but fat never breaks. It just absorbs.
That's it. Which is, I think, is going. My mathematical theory of no muscles equals no muscle tears just a step further.
Nice.
And again, go to realmickfoley.com. Again, this is a unique experience. 20 Years of Hell tour. Q&A session right afterwards, and obviously you can get all the dates by going to realmickfoley.com. And also, as well, if you're in the New York area on March 10th in Queens, the big event, Mick Foley will be signing autographs too. So it's amazing, Mick, that at this stage, with your writing career and now what you're going back into doing these one-man shows, how busy you've been. Yeah,
it's been. I've been lucky. I had to make up for lost time. I had the hip and the knee replaced, and then I'm lucky enough that I could take a month off in December and do volunteer stuff. And at a certain point, it's like, I guess I better get back out and earn some money. So it's nice that there are opportunities out there, and LaGuardia is only an hour from my house. That's if you're a wrestling fan. And you're in the area, Tom, you can vouch for me. Like, these things are kind of surreal because everywhere you turn, there's somebody you grew up with. And like I look around, I honestly don't know how they continue to do these things, because there's like less than 1,000 people, right? Let's say about 1,000 fans. There's 120 wrestlers. Like this should be like if you have a 10-to-1 student-teacher ratio in a school, you're doing really good. But there's like only 10 wrestlers for every one person. So by and large, the lines aren't long. I mean, you get your couple of, 2 or 3 guys who have lines out the door. But by and large, you can meet a lot of people in just those 3 hours. It's a good time for the boys and the women. We get to catch up on old friendships, and it's a lot of fun.
Yep. For me, when I look, I don't do a lot of signings, but I like going there. I think Brian Adias is on the marquee.
Brian Adias is going to be there? I'm going.
He's on the marquee and something like that. I'll tell you a little story. Beulah, she started getting into guitar, and she's always wanted to see the Eagles. Her birthday is next week, and she's going to Chicago to see the Eagles because it's something she always wanted to do in her life. And for me, like I always wanted to see a Tom Petty concert. I can't do that anymore, and I was going to go see him. So that's why I love going to these concerts, because you never know, where life takes you or what happens. So get out there, and for fans, I know some fans get starstruck, or some fans. Mick Foley is probably one of the most approachable human beings, and a lot of wrestlers are. And when people just say, I loved your work, or this, that means a lot to us as well. So, and for Mick's tour that's coming up, he's going to tell you stories of stuff that's going on behind the scenes. It's really in-depth stuff. So tell me where do I sign up? I like to do a run, and I will take a bump off of something if you want me to. I'm telling you. For Mick, I do anything. I love the guy. Tommy Dreamer wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Mick Foley. So,
well, I don't know about that. We all. I'm glad I was one of those guys that was there. But anybody who says they made it on their own is fooling themselves. I had, I compiled a list of like 100 people who helped me out along the way. I still had plenty to go. When I was inducted into the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame last year, I did it in verse by thanking from A to Z 26 people who'd helped me out along the way. So I'm glad I was one of those guys. I remember that it was an epic promo. It was you by my side.
Yep.
And you didn't say a word. Remember that?
Correct.
I'd had my hand sliced open by the Sandman, and it was more or less like, this guy's with me, and it was a really good promo segment. Tommy, without saying a word, just looking masculine, was more over than he was when he started. So again, glad to be a part of that process, Tommy.
Yep. I know my mom, because you turned me from a handsome, good-looking body guy to a hardcore, hideous freak. So my mom doesn't really like you, but everybody else in the world seems to love you for it.
That's the way my wife feels about Terry Funk.
You know.
He just go ahead.
No. Okay, please continue.
When I'm writing the show, it's like it's interesting to see how vital Terry was to this the Cell story. So I've got to give a little background as to his mentorship in Japan, and the idea that if I listen to my wife when I came home, and I always came home in just horrible physical shape from these matches with Terry, and after that, Kawasaki Dream Tournament, better known as the King of the Death Match Tournament, my wife goes just like, couldn't you have found a different mentor? Yeah, I guess I could have. I might look better, I might walk better, but my life would have been less fulfilling. So glad I could be that guy for you, as Terry was as well.
Yes, I enjoy every time I would get on an airplane and we'd start to take off, and my head would just start bleeding as flight attendants and strangers would look at me, and I'd be like, I'm fine. No, it's okay. Go look at Balls Mahoney. He's 3 seats behind me. He's horrible.
It's funny, Mick. In a few minutes, we're gonna have Nita Strauss, guitarist of Alice Cooper, on, and I believe you saw Alice in August, and I think I'm going on Friday in Morristown. Are you a big Cooper fan?
Man, I'm solid Alice Cooper fan. But Nita, man, I can't say enough nice things about her. She makes you realize, everyone accepts Alice Cooper as iconic and, amazing. And then she adds to him, and she speaks so highly of him, as does everyone who's ever played with him. She said that, Nita's really flamboyant, one of the best guitarists in the world. She's packed with charisma. She's an incredible show person. And, she wondered if she'd be taking anything away from Alice, by being so flamboyant. Alice Cooper said to her, when you're on stage, when you're doing your solo, you are Alice Cooper. Like, more or less saying, if you can steal it, steal it. Like, I'm not worried about being upstage. And besides, the better your solo is, the less people realize I'm going backstage to take a 3-minute break. And like, just the harmonious nature of that score is something I think like every musician looks for. The idea that you're this iconic figure is staying in the same 3-star hotel as the players, and so she's amazing. One of my favorite people, and I think just a natural to do something with WWE.
Wow.
She should 100%. When you have fans,
I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's just playing the anthem at a pay-per-view. I don't know if it's playing Bad Reputation at Mania for Ronda Rousey, but it's too much of a natural with the women's revolution. And here's this, amazing young lady. You could tell her, I told her I was going to say nice things about her. I really appreciate you bringing her name up to me. But, and she's so good to my kids. A lot of one of my sons is on the autism spectrum. And he's a guitar player, so to go backstage and play guitar with Nita Strauss was really a rush for all of us. So, yeah, please tell her I said hello and that I am actively working on her behalf to try to, bring her into the fold.
Before you said it, I was going to say she should play Ronda Rousey's music. So right then and there, it's a great idea because two people thought about it and they didn't have any collusion. Mick, before you came on, we were talking about who do you feel should be in the Hall of Fame that isn't? That's sort of the big topic that we've been going with. Who do you feel? I said Ivan Koloff, Rick Martel, my 1 and 2.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Vader and Chyna.
Okay.
Absolutely.
As Leon was so dominant, not just in WCW. He'll be the first to tell you, that if he'd come in during the Attitude Era into WWE, I think he would have been, amazing. But they had him, from the very get-go, running away from people. I remember I would drive with him, and he'd be like, "I'm Vader, and I'm running away. I'm running away." So, and whereas I had to give an open rein to do whatever I wanted with the character, he just seemed to have so many people in his ear trying to tell him how to do Vader when he'd done it successfully all over the world. But I think when you take into account, everything he accomplished, not just in WCW, but for New Japan, Mexico, for Otto Vons in Germany and Austria. Yeah, I think Vader should be in. And I really like the fact that Chyna's being mentioned, that she's being shown in clips. I would love to see her in. I know how much it would mean to her mom. And, I tell people, you can't let that one decision dictate to you whether or not your career was a success. Which is exactly how I felt until they asked me, and then it became a really big deal. Yeah. But I didn't wander around wondering if my career had meant anything because I wasn't in the Hall of Fame. But it is a big deal, and those are the two I would go with, Vader and Chyna.
All right, it's 20 years of hell, of course, talking about one of the most iconic matches in the history of pro wrestling, Hell in a Cell between Mick Foley and The Undertaker. Please go to realmickfoley.com SiriusXM.com to find out all the dates, all the events, and everything. Mick Foley. Mick, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today.
Hey, thanks for having us on, and maybe I'll see you at the Cooper show.
I'm definitely going. I'm going to be there Friday night, so maybe we'll run into each other.
Hey, sounds good.
All right.
Thanks, Mick.
For having me on.